I'm BJ with Riders Wholesale. We've got our 400 Linhai here. We're going to show you how to assemble it. Whenever you receive it, this is how you're going to receive it. It's in a solid metal structure with cardboard around it. First thing you want to do is take your cardboard off and then take your frame loose. Do after you get the cardboard off of the crate is just simply unbolt it. All you need is a 14 socket ratchet and a 14 wrench. Take all the bolts out of the frame. Once you removed all the bolts out of the frame, your wheels and tires are wired in. You can either unwire them or use a pair of cutters like I got here. Loosen all that and all your plastic here. Take a knife, cut it and unwrap everything and get everything out in the open where you can get to it. The frame. Crate removed, unpack everything away from the ATV and lay it out somewhere where you can get to it real conveniently. All your tires and wheels are going to need to be aired up. I recommend putting 30 pounds of air in them seat to seat. Let them set for about 7 or 8 hours before you let them back down to about 5 pounds. As you can see, our ATVs are packaged really well. There's not a dent or a scrape one on this once we got it undone. And the reason being is not only building a cage around the ATV, we also bolt it to the frame. It's bolted right here with 2 bolts. And then there's 2 bolts in the front right there that you're going to have to loosen so you can get the ATV up out of the frame. Up here in the front, you've got your other brace. It's bolted on both sides. You got to take the nut loose and then you can pick the unit right up out of the frame. Real simple. The next thing you want to do, we cheated a little bit. We used our forklift, but you can use a bottle jack or a car jack to jack one end or the other up to the ATV. But once I get it all unwrapped, the next thing I do is I take the seat off. Under the storage compartment here, you got your owner's manual, your battery acid for your battery, handlebar clips, lug nuts, your toolkit. I leave the toolkit right in there. After you get all that out, get you a table or somewhere, line it all up to where you know what you got, what you're reaching for. The next thing we do after this is we assemble the battery. I'm going to show you that in a second. This right here is all the nuts and bolts that it takes to assemble your ATV. It's real simple. You can be up and riding in a matter of an hour or 2. And I just wanted to show you right here is all the tools that we've used so far. Next, after you get all that done, you want to go to the rear of the bike over here on the left rear corner and pull your battery out of your battery box. There's one strap down here. Just loosen your strap, tilt your battery backwards, the battery comes right out. It does not have no acid in it. So what I recommend is like what I got over here. I got a table that I go over to. Make sure you set this on some cardboard or something too if you spill some battery acid. Got 2 layers of plastic. Make sure none spills on your bike and shipping. On the top of your acid pack, just get you a little screwdriver or something. Punch a little hole right there to where your acid will flow out. And put your red piece right on here just like that. Make sure you get that piece down on your acid really good to where it don't fly off. If you barely get that piece on there, it flies off and it tends to make a great big mess and fill in the battery. You just put it in like that. Just take your time, squeeze the acid. I fill them up to the low level right here and get acid to come all the way up. Then after I get each one filled up, I go back and retop each one off. You get all your acid in the battery, just go ahead and wipe the top off. Leave your plugs out. And I recommend letting the battery set like that for about 2 to 4 hours before you put your top plugs in. We're going to go ahead and install our plugs right back into the top here. After you get these in, we're going to put this battery on charge. You want to trickle charge it with a 2 amp charger or less for about 5 to 6 hours. And then after you get done charging it, you will let it set for about 4 to 5 hours, and then you'll be ready to put it in your machine. Or I recommend maybe just letting it set overnight. And if you go through all those steps and properly assemble this battery the way that it's supposed to be assembled, it'll last for a really long time, and you'll get good life out of it. If you don't, it probably won't last very long at all. The next thing you want to do is install your tires and wheels. The rear wheels are your 25 10 by 12s, and the V pattern should be pointing towards the front of the body. Let's tighten them up. It's a number 19 socket. If you have a torque wrench, the torque setting on this should be 85 foot-pounds on each one. You want to go through and check them to make sure you get them good and tight. Your 25 8 by 12s is what goes on the front. Always take your lug nuts and start them by hand before you try to tighten them. That way you make sure you don't strip out a stud or anything like that. You want to set your battery into your battery box here with the post turned down on it. Your red wire goes to positive, your black wire goes to negative. Just put your bolts right in and take a Phillips screwdriver, lean your battery out, tighten them up. Tighten them up. You want to put your cover back over. It fits right over the cables. Put it over and lean your battery up in there. On this side, there's a drain tube that comes with your battery. You want to hook it up. It's a breather tube, and put a tie strap on it down here on the bottom to where any battery acid just runs right out on the ground if it happens to overcharge or anything. Then the last thing you want to do is install your strap to hold your battery in. It just hooks right up there, hooks right down here. And that should keep your battery held into your machine. And that's how to properly assemble a battery. Your next step is assembling your handlebars. You might need a little bit of help with this. It's a little tricky. These right here are your handlebar clamps. What you want to do is put 2 of these to your mount right here up under your handlebar, and then you want to put these right here on top of your handlebar, and go ahead and run your bolts through your mount right here for your electronic dash, and then you just slide them in all the way through the handlebar there. Alright. After you get your bolts all the way down through there and get your bracket on, next you want to take your nuts, put on the bottom side here, put all 4 on, let's get them started. After you get them all started, just tighten them up. On each side of your handlebar, this is really important, there's serrated edges right here. You want to line both sides up to where both sides of the serrated edges are in there in your clips. And on these handlebars, what you want to do is get them level across from bar to bar. These bolts and nuts are 13s tops and bottom. We just use this ratchet here, makes it a little bit easier. Make sure you go around and tighten each one equally too. It's always better to use a socket and ratchet instead of impact. That way you can feel exactly how much you're tightening each bolt and nut. After you get your handlebars all tight, you want to install your digital dash. Make sure the neutral and reverse lights are up here at the top. You got threaded pins down here on the bottom. Put 2 rubbers on both of those, and then just simply drop them into the holes there. These are number 10 nuts on the bottom side. Just thread your nuts on, tighten her down. Key switch is going to be loose here. Go ahead and take that nut off. Pull this plastic piece off. Then you're ready to put your top mount on. Just 2 bolts and nuts hold it on. It just simply slides over the key switch like so. You take and put your rubber back on. Put your nut back on the top. You can just reach in under there and hold it from the bottom side. You don't want to tighten that too tight. Just get it started on there. And once you get that started on there, you take your 2 Phillips head bolts and nuts here, or bolts. They're already pre-threaded on the bottom side. Start them in. take you a Phillips screwdriver and tighten them on up. After you get those tightened, just come back in and hold your key switch. Tighten up your nut right there. Just get it real good and snug, and then get you a pair of pliers and go ahead and just tighten it up the rest of the way. It ain't got to be too tight. This right here is pretty neat. When you pull the key out, it's got a cover, no water or anything will get down there in your key switch. Almost ready to crank this thing up. Handlebar protectors here. All you do is take hex head, loosen these here up, screw them all the way out. All you want to do is just get it finger tight. Started about like that right there. Then over here on the handlebar, you got your bracket. Take your Phillips screwdriver, start them in to get them nice and level across here, and just snug them on up. On your handbrake up here on the front, you might have to really pump this thing to get the pressure built up. You'll know whenever you have brakes up here, whenever there's a bunch of resistance on the lever. After you get the fuel in, you want to come over here to this side of the machine and make sure your fuel switch is on. Another thing you want to do is right here is your coolant for your machine. You want to check it and see if it's got enough coolant in it. Right now it's all the way up to the upper level. Here's your dipstick for your oil. Just screw it out. And this has got shipping oil in it too. A lot of people like to change this oil. There's a drain plug right on the bottom of the motor. If you want to change it before you run it, I kind of recommend that. A lot of times we crank them up and we'll run them for a few minutes, make sure they're full of oil to where the oil runs out hot and gets it all out too. Right down here is your differential checker. It's just a dipstick that screws out, and it's just like your oil. Wipe it. This here takes 90 weight is what you want to put in this. I definitely ride it around a little bit and get this good and hot, and then drain it out. Make sure you get it all out before you put your other back in. You checked it. What you do is turn your switch on here. Make sure it's in neutral down here. It'll come on if it's in any gear. You pull your brake in and just mash the starter button, and it should start right up. It's a little cold out. You might have to use a choke. I basically recommend starting it up and letting it run for about 10-15 minutes before you go out and ride. Then you're ready to go out and ride on the trail. I hope you enjoyed our video, our assembly video here, to show you how to put together this Linhai 400. If you go through all these steps and do them correctly, you'll have a bike that'll last you many, many